Usopp is not getting the hammer Mjolnir, and he's not getting a devil fruit, but he will get an exciting new upgrade. With One Piece being plagued by agendas and hyperbole, it's easy to set yourself up with theories like the Thunder God Usopp or Usopp conquering Valhalla. That being said, there's more than enough evidence to show why Usopp will get a strong new ability and a cool new weapon in the current arc. Which is exactly why I'd like to explore all of the theories surrounding Usopp, explain why I think a lot of them are never going to happen, and offer my own predictions for how Usopp will enhance his haki and get a legendary new weapon worthy of the name God Usopp. But first, we need to lay out all of the prevailing theories. So let's start by looking at what those are and discussing why they're probably not going to happen. More than anything, the one theory I've seen floating around is the idea that Usopp will get a new weapon in the form of Mjolnir. In case you haven't seen any of the Marvel movies, Mjolnir is the hammer of Thor that acts a bit like Excalibur since only he can carry it. Or in Marvel specifically, only a certain caliber of people can carry it. So the idea being that Usopp, being the specimen that he is, would go to the Nordic-themed island of Elbaf, encounter a hammer with the same name, and then add it to his current arsenal. That is a lovely theory, and I do think people have the right idea, but let me tell you why this isn't going to happen. So it's easy to think, oh well, Usopp is a sniper, he doesn't hit people. But if you go back to pre-time skip, you can see that Usopp was no stranger to melee attacks. He beat Chu with the Usopp hammer, which was just a little hammer. He used the so-called 5-ton hammer in his fight in Alabasta, and he used a 10-ton hammer to beat Perona during Thriller Bark. Plus, before Frankie was around, Usopp did the repairs. And guess what he was always carrying around? That's right, a hammer. So the whole Usopp will get Thor's hammer theory does have some ground to stand on. But even so, when you really think about it, the likelihood that Usopp will get some crazy big hammer and it'll become part of his regular arsenal isn't that strong. Yes, it is true that Usopp is no stranger to hammers. But let me ask you this. When was the last time Usopp has ever used a hammer attack? Supposedly Usopp used his hammer in Dressrosa, but I never saw it in the manga, just a screenshot of the anime online. But even assuming that's true, that means that was the last time we saw Usopp use his hammer in almost 400 chapters. And if it isn't true, then he hasn't done so since all the way back to Thriller Bark. In other words, Usopp has moved on from the hammer attacks, especially ever since he upgraded his slingshot. So the chance of him going back to using a hammer is unlikely now that he's already moved on. You could make the argument that it's like Zoro and how he got the Ashura form revamp hundreds of chapters after he first used it in Eni's lobby, but I think we can all agree that was pretty unpredictable. But Ouji, you might say, what about Usopp's lies? It is true that Usopp's lies have a habit of coming true, but let me explain why that probably doesn't apply here. Actually, before I do that, make sure to like the video if you're enjoying it so far. It's the easiest way to support the channel, and help spread the video to other viewers like you. Now, besides the fact that it's Usopp and he's going to Elbaf, another reason people think Usopp is getting Mjolnir is because his lies always come true. So for example, he said there was a dragon, and guess what? We got a dragon. He said something about a mole, and he fought a giant mole. He said pirates would attack Syrup Village, and guess what? They attacked Syrup Village. He said something about a giant fish, and that did come true. So, as you can see, the list goes on and on. So the idea is that because he has lied about being able to lift all these big hammers, that this trend will continue with Usopp being able to lift the hammer above all hammers. Especially considering that he told Perona he used to be called the strongest man in the East Blue. Now, with the exception of that one, well actually this one's a pretty solid reason, I won't even lie, but I will say this. This is one of those things where people convince themselves that something will definitely happen in One Piece. Like, first of all, has everything Usopp's lied about come true? Probably not. So when he lies about using hammers and being the strongest in East Blue, it's like, yeah, it could happen, but then again, there's nothing showing it will definitely happen. It all goes back to Agenda Piece. Yes, these kinds of things can happen, but people take what has happened as if it's somehow the gospel handed down from Oda himself, and then they think it has to happen. Now, that being said, I have a bone to pick with all the people complaining about Frankie and Egghead. but I'll get to that in just a couple of minutes. First, I'd like to address the theory that's going around that Usopp will get a devil fruit. Like, what? Excuse me? In what world is Usopp ever the person to get a devil fruit? I do understand that this is One Piece we're talking about, and at this point Oda is basically writing his own fanfiction, but Usopp of all people will never get a devil fruit. First of all, with the exception of Sabo, the only people to not have devil fruits and then get them are the villains. CP9 and then in particular the Blackbeard pirates. If Usopp was gonna get one, it should have been a long time ago. Plus, Usopp isn't supposed to be this like super powered character. That's part of the charm of Usopp. He's one of the weaker characters who doesn't have Sun God or Demon King abilities. He's just a dude with a slingshot. So I don't care what theory you have. Not only am I certain Usopp is not getting a devil fruit, but I'll wager this. If Usopp gets a devil fruit power, during Elbaf, mind you, I will change my name to Ouji Smells over on Twitter. Now, that being said, I don't support all of these egghead haters. Specifically, there's these people who were really invested in Frankie getting all kinds of character growth, or a bunch of crazy new abilities in Egghead, given that Frankie admires Vegapunk and that was Vegapunk's big arc. So if Frankie wasn't getting anything then, we shouldn't expect anything for Usopp either. And all I gotta say to that is Zoro and Wano. Granted, he didn't exactly get everything we wanted, but I mean, come on. Zoro got a bunch of cool stuff in Wano. And that's Zoro. You know who Oda loves more than Zoro? Well, okay, Buggy, but after Buggy? That's right, Usopp. I hate to say it, but as much as I like Frankie, he doesn't rank close to Usopp in terms of popularity. I mean, did Frankie get the name God? So this idea that the Straw Hats are done and they're never getting anything is just BS. As a matter of fact, while I don't think he's getting the literal Mjolnir or a Devil Fruit, I do think there's a couple of things we can look forward to for Usopp. The first being a new hockey ability, and the second being a new slingshot. So first of all, I think Usopp is getting an upgrade to his hockey abilities. We already know from Dressrosa that Usopp can use hockey, but like I said before, that was almost 400 chapters ago. Since then, it's been teased more than a few times that Usopp would get new hockey abilities both in the anime and in one of the movies. With most of the Straw Hats being able to use hockey, it only makes sense that Usopp would be able to do the same, especially with hockey becoming more and more relevant in the story and power scaling. And like everyone likes to say, if Usopp is gonna get some upgrades, what better time than in Elbaf? Now, what would those hockey abilities look like? As far as specifically what kind of hockey, we've basically seen him use observation hockey already, and he could theoretically learn armament hockey, but that's whatever. With a character as bold as Usopp, it's only fair that he learned Conqueror's hockey. Now, as far as how that would manifest, if I had my way, Usopp would be like the Dragonborn of Skyrim, and he'd be able to turn his lies into shouts that destroy his enemies. But unfortunately, I do not write One Piece. But I am a fan, and I do have my theories. And funny enough, while I don't think Usopp will get a literal hammer, I do think he'll get a Conqueror's hockey ability in the form of a hammer. Hear me out. Thor has a hammer, and what is he the god of? Thunder. So maybe Usopp doesn't get a hammer. Maybe instead of a literal hammer, the giants show him how to manipulate his hockey, and then as a sniper he uses his slingshot to shoot a hockey attack in the shape of a hammer that he then names Mjolnir. Not only would he still get the Mjolnir thing, but it would even be more in line with the Thor theme with the lightning-like ability. Now, is Usopp learning Conqueror's hockey very likely? About as likely as him suddenly becoming a brawler like everyone seems to want. But given the increasing need to use Conqueror's hockey, why not give it to the character who always seems to come out on top? But that's not the only upgrade Usopp will get. The other thing I think we'll see is a new weapon for Usopp. Specifically, a new slingshot forged by the Giants of Elbaf. At this point, we've seen more than a few weapons upgrades. Sanji got his new suit from the Vinsmokes, Zoro got Enma in Wano, even Nami got Zeus. So considering all of these characters got upgrades, I think it's about time Usopp got a new weapon. And as cool as his current slingshot is, I think it's only fitting that the biggest fanboy himself gets an Elbaf original slingshot. As far as I see it, I think it's fair to say Usopp will earn the favor of the giants on Elbaf. He hit it off with Dory and Brogy pretty easy, so it's easy to understand how he would fare well on Elbaf. Again, this is the guy who earned the title of God on Dressrosa. The man has an unnatural amount of charisma. Now, seeing as how this is a fantasy-themed island, I think it would be pretty cool if Usopp even went on a quest to help someone on Elbaf, and then earned the new slingshot in return. What it's made out of isn't too important, but like Enma, I think what Usopp needs is a weapon that is built to make it easy for him to infuse his haki with. So whereas someone like Zoro gets a samurai sword, Usopp gets a cool new slingshot that, while not traditionally a Viking weapon, would be a gift from the giants of Elbaf. This is where I think Usopp becomes ready for the final saga. Even better than a literal hammer, Usopp can learn how to shoot a lightning attack like the God of Thunder and shoot a haki Mjolnir. To do that, he can use his brand new Viking-themed slingshot forged by the giants of Elbaf. Because of this, while he may not be Dragonborn, he can be something even better. With the power of Thor and the weapon forged by the warriors of Elbaf, Usopp could be One Piece's very own Giantborn. But now I'd like to hear what you think. What's your theory for Usopp and Elbaf? How would you rate my theory? Share your thoughts and see what everyone else has to say down in the comments. I'll pick my favorite and share it as comment of the week on my community tab. And if you'd like another video like this one, then check out my video on One Piece's art style. In that video, I analyze the artistic evolution of One Piece. You can find that video in the playlist linked right here. Until then, thank you for watching, and I hope to hear from you soon.